As you can see, I've had a haircut, I've had a shave. No, it's not because I've been bullied by JW trolls saying that they won't listen to my opinions unless I look like them. It's actually simply because it was time for a haircut, and it came to the point where we were going to go for the haircut, and I looked at my face in the mirror and I could see that I was starting to look like Muhammad. So I thought, I can't walk into a hairdressing establishment looking like that, so I shaved my beard off. And then we went for the haircut, and the lady was talking to me saying, is this length okay, is this length okay? And that, to be honest, I wasn't really paying that much attention. I just wanted it cut. So by the end of it, she took off way more than I had wanted her to, but it's going to grow back, it's no big deal, and at least now my viewers get to see what I looked like maybe 6 or 7 years ago when I was still a witness. So there we go. Anyway, back to more important matters. If you remember in my last branch visit video, I mentioned that there's been a lot of craziness going on with the governing body at the moment, and I did at one point think about doing one long video to deal with all of it, but I'm glad I didn't, because as you'll be able to see, my branch visit video, in which I deal with Sam Hurd and Tony Morris, went to, I think it was over 42 minutes, so goodness knows how long the video would have been if I'd had included GERRIT LÖSCH and Stephen Lett, but don't worry, their time has come. So in this video I'm going to talk about GERRIT LÖSCH, and in the next video I'm going to talk about Stephen Lett, so everyone gets a fair crack of the whip. Alright, so GERRIT LÖSCH, he is an Austrian-born governing body member. He is the longest standing governing body member, having been appointed in 1994. And I wrote an article on him recently because, very interestingly, if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this, he was asked to appear at a court case dealing with child sex abuse. And the reason they wanted him to appear was to explain the organisation's policies relating to child abuse and to defend them, essentially, to offer some kind of explanation as to the logic behind them. And this was an obvious opportunity for GERRIT to appear before the authorities and defend the organisation, as the Bible indicates witnesses would need to. And instead of doing that, GERRIT LÖSCH jumped through hoops not to attend. And this is, I've printed it out, his 3-page, I don't know what you'd call it, his 3-page document that he sent to the court explaining his reasons for not attending. And you can, if you go to the link below this video, you can see for yourself the documents, and you can download them for yourself and check that this is all true, that this is not just me making things up. And if you look at the end of the document, you'll see that it's been signed by GERRIT LÖSCH. So no excuses, JW apologists. This is a real document. It's got GERRIT LÖSCH's signature on it. And what does it say? Well, it basically, as I say, gives a lot of reasons why GERRIT LÖSCH doesn't want to or shouldn't have to appear before the court. And the main thrust of his argument is he argues that he has virtually no relationship with the Watchtower Society that would make him answerable to the court or answerable for the mistakes of the Watchtower Society. Very, very cowardly stance to take, really. And to give you an example of this, point 7, which is on page 2, says the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is the highest ecclesiastical authority for the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it exercises spiritual oversight for Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. And you may think, well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, basically Watchtower is being airbrushed out of the scenario. the argument that's being made is that you have the governing body and then you have Jehovah's Witnesses, and Watchtower is, well, as has been indicated in the literature, Watchtower is supposed to be a tool for the governing body to use to get the preaching work done. And but obviously it's far more than that, as anyone who's been a witness for any amount of time will tell you. And then in point 8, this is GERRIT LÖSCH, a document that GERRIT LÖSCH signed. GERRIT says, "I am not and never have been a corporate officer, director, managing agent, member or employee of Watchtower." This might be technically true, by the way. He might not have been any of those things, but that's only because Watchtower doesn't have employees. It has volunteers, and just because he's not been a director himself of Watchtower doesn't mean he doesn't have control over it. But then it says, "I do not direct and have never directed the day-to-day operations of Watchtower." Now again, technically this may be true. GERRIT LÖSCH on his own may not direct Watchtower, but he certainly does direct it in conjunction with the rest of the governing body members, of which he is the longest serving. So it's a really terrible excuse to say, well, I have nothing to do with directing Watchtower because it's actually me and 6 other blokes that do it. It's a really terrible cop-out, but that's what he says. And then more shockingly, he says, "I do not answer to Watchtower. I do not have and never have had any authority as an individual, to make or determine corporate policy for Watchtower or any department of Watchtower." Now, I'll come back to that "I do not answer to Watchtower" statement, but again, saying that he doesn't have any authority as an individual, well, anyone reading this document who knows anything about Jehovah's Witnesses will know that that is not an excuse for refusing to speak out on behalf of Watchtower if he does have authority in conjunction with the other governing body members. And that was the spirit in which he was asked to appear before the court. The court weren't asking him to assume full responsibility for everything Watchtower does. They just knew that he was the longest serving governing body member, and as such would have some insight into how decisions were taken because he's on the governing body. But GERRIT is ignoring all of that and just saying, well, you know, it's not me on my own, that it's not me as an individual that directs Watchtower. Terrible, terrible cop-out. Anyway, the really interesting thing that I wanted to get to was point 9. Watchtower does not have and never has had any authority over me. And he says this having already said in the previous paragraph, "I do not answer to Watchtower." Now, precisely what GERRIT means by this, only he will know. But it's extremely disingenuous for a man who advocates loyalty to the organisation to be saying, well, I don't have, it doesn't have any authority over me. How comfortable would GERRIT be if an ordinary Bethelite or an ordinary elder or an ordinary publisher said those words to him if he was asking them to do something? Well, you know, Watchtower has no authority over me. What do you think, if you're a witness watching this, what do you think the ramifications would be if you were to stand up in your Kingdom Hall in front of everybody and say, I do not answer to Watchtower. Watchtower does not have and never has had any authority over me. I think it's fairly safe to say that the ramifications would be rather swift and rather brutal. You'd be dragged into the back room and you'd be questioned at the very least over what you meant by this. But you could say truthfully that all you're doing is repeating the words of a member of the faithful slave, which is what GERRIT purports to be. GERRIT LÖSCH purports to be a member of the governing body, which in turn is the faithful and discreet slave. Here's his signature on the end of the document in case you missed it. Absolutely incredible. But at the risk of repeating myself, allow me to read from the Revised New World Translation, Mark 13 verse 9. Jesus' words, "As for you, look out for yourselves. People will hand you over to local courts, and you will be beaten in the synagogues and be put on the stand before governors and kings for my sake, for a witness to them." Now, in this case, GERRIT LÖSCH has been ordered, or was ordered, to appear before a court to answer on behalf of the organisation for its policies on child abuse. And rather than take to heart this scripture and think, well, I'm going to give a witness to the authorities about this issue and put it to bed once and for all, he, as I say, jumped through hoops to avoid doing it, to the point where the organisation, for this and something else which you'll find out about in the podcast interview with Owen Zalkin, this wasn't the only reason, but Watchtower was punished by the court and as a result wasn't able to defend the charges against the organisation. Owen Zalkin, it was like open season for him. Owen Zalkin could just present the evidence to show that this poor guy Jose Lopez was abused at the hands of Gonzalo Campos, even though they'd introduced Gonzalo Campos to Jose Lopez, or they knew about the fact that he was studying with him, and they also knew that Gonzalo Campos was a pedophile. They knew it before the two started having their study together, and did nothing to stop it. And it's for this reason that Watchtower finds itself on the wrong end of a $13.5 million judgment, which it says it will appeal, and it's entitled to appeal. But as Owen Zalkin says in our podcast, good luck, because you've already insulted the same court that you're appealing to by refusing to comply with a very reasonable request. So I think if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this video, you just need to, think about this carefully. You are being asked to make a stand for this organisation, to go out into your community. If you're a young person, you're asked to face ridicule from your fellow classmates. You're asked to put on a defence of your beliefs in front of your work colleagues, your classmates, anybody you encounter, whether it puts you in a difficult position or not. And when asked by a court of law to give a defence of the organisation, a governing body member basically refused. He refused to defend the organisation. What does this tell you? What kind of leadership is this? What kind of leader takes on this position of authority over people and then refuses to take responsibility, to give some kind of account for himself and for the organisation? It's absolutely horrendous cowardice. There's no other word for it. How can you characterise GERRIT LÖSCH's behaviour in a positive way? You can't. So again, Jehovah's Witnesses watching this video, please look up the document. This is a big deal. It can't just be dismissed as Satan's propaganda, lies from the media. It isn't anything of the sort. It's all documented. And these men who claim to be your leaders really aren't the sort of people that you should be looking up to, as I will address again in my next video, which will be about pinky rings, Stephen Lett. So look out for that video, and once again, thank you for watching.